Cemeteries are places that connect us with history. They connect us with the past. Over the past few years, several family members have been locating and visiting family cemeteries. Bits and pieces of information have been supplied by many people to locate these cemeteries. Some are on public and some are on private property. This video documents their locations and gives a general idea of who is buried there. Of course, all are located in the Missouri Ozarks. Most are in southern Iron County and northern Wayne County. The only one not in these two counties is the Aldrich Valley Cemetery. It is in Carter County. This overview shows all the cemeteries covered in this video. We will discuss each cemetery individually, showing coordinates so they can be located by GPS. I will use myself, Alan Rubel, as a reference point to follow the family tree. We will be following back through my dad, Jim Rubel's side of the family, and then my mom, Irene Dillingham Rubel's side of the family. So here we go. Sutton Cemetery. This cemetery is located in Vulcan, Missouri, and encompasses most of the Rubel side of the family. So from me, back through my dad, Jim Rubel, through his dad, Avery Rubel. Avery Rubel and his wife Myrtle are both buried in Sutton Cemetery, along with most of the Rubel ancestors. Here is a video of Jim Rubel when we visited the cemetery.
Henry Rubel, the son of Joseph and Stacy McCrae Rubel, and Joseph is the one that settled Vulcan in 1823, and Henry is his son, so he would be our great-great-grandfather. And then we'll go on down to the next one, but Henry is the oldest one that's buried up here, and Joseph is buried down behind Cubby Rubel's house on down to Vulcan, because that's the original homestead. And so Joseph came here in 1823 and settled Vulcan. Okay. This is William Rubel, the son of Henry Rubel, and he's the second oldest in this cemetery, and he's our great-grandfather. And his wife Hepsy is buried next to him with a small stone there. And William lived in the Vulcan area. And let's go on to the next one.
Okay, just keep on going.
Okay, this is James Andrew.
Where you at?
No, that's not one. James and Nellie.
We're down here.
That's Lewis.
Okay, this is
This is
Here's
Paul.
James and Nellie, Jim.
Over here.
Let's get behind it.
okay. This is James Andrew and Nellie McCormick Rubel, and that's William's son. And James Andrew is my grandpa. So we've got James Andrew, we got William, and then we got Henry, and then, like I said, Joseph is buried down by Cubby Rubel's. Okay.
Okay, go on. And the next one down here.
That's it.
Okay, this, you ready?
Yep.
This is James Avery and Myrtle Lewis Rubel. And James Avery is my dad and the son of William Rubel.
James Andrew.
James Andrew. And they lived at Vulcan, and they were raised their family at Vulcan, and they lived at Bruno for several years. And right here is a R. This is Allen's
Alan's retirement home.
Allen's retirement home, and he has a 22-inch strip down through here. But he says he's going to be cremated, so he don't need a whole lot of room. And then I recently bought 2 lots right down here. I don't intend to use them, but I just wanted them because I needed some lots in the cemetery. My dad, Avery Rubel, was born in 1903, and he had 2, a brother and a sister and an infant brother, and they all died of scarlet fever. And Avery, my dad, was the only one that survived, and they were, this is Avis, Irene, and this is Elmer, and this is the infant that was, and
He was born dead,
I think
yeah.
she was born dead. And this would have been in about 1906 and 7,
10, yeah.
10, along in there.
Annapolis Cemetery. This cemetery is located in Annapolis, Missouri, and includes most of the Lewis side of the family, but there are a few Lewis family members in Sutton Cemetery. It also includes the Keithley family members. So from me, back through my dad, Jim Rubel, through his mom, Myrtle Lewis Rubel. Myrtle's father was William Punkin Lewis, and her mother was Mary Bell Keithley. They are both buried here along with other Lewis and Keithley family members. Once again, Jim Rubel when we visited the cemetery.
We're at the Annapolis Cemetery in Annapolis, Missouri, and we're going to the Lewis reunion, which is held every year, and it's the William and Belle Lewis family reunion. And William Punkin and Belle was my mom and dad, my mom's mother and father. And this is where they're buried, and the stone says William P. The P is for Punkin. He didn't have a middle name, so they called him Punkin to distinguish him from other William Lewises. And he married Mary Dace first, and they had 2 children, and they were Henry and Bertha. And then he married Belle, my grandmother, and they had 7 children, and of course one of them was my mom, Myrtle. And Belle died in 1955 while I was in the Air Force, and we're here today to go to the reunion. This is Henry and Macy Lewis, and Henry was a son, my mother's brother, and his dad was Punkin William and Mary Dace, his first wife. And Macy was in England, and no, she wasn't. She was anyway, Henry and Macy, and they lived in Sutton Hollow and raised their family just a little ways from where Grandma Belle and Punkin William lived, up in Sutton Hollow. They were all raised in Sutton Hollow. This is Martha and Luther Sherrill. Martha was my mother's sister, and they lived on Funk Branch out of Annapolis, and they raised their family out there. And I visited them quite a bit because one of their sons, Gerald, was in my class at school, and of course I knew them, used to visit them quite often.
Sparks Cemetery. Here's the grave of Theodore C. McCormick. So from me, back through my dad, Jim Rubel, through his dad, Avery Rubel, to his mother, Lucy Nellie Jane McCormick. Theodore was Lucy's father. This is a picture of Theodore's stone. It is a military stone as he fought in the Civil War. English Cemetery. Here is the grave of Artie Hayner McCormick. She was the wife of Theodore McCormick. Again, from me back through my dad, Jim Rubel, through his dad, Avery Rubel, to his mother, Lucy Nellie Jane McCormick. Artie is Lucy's mother. Artie and Theodore are buried in different cemeteries because she was Theodore's second wife, and he is buried alongside his first wife. Here is a picture of her stone. Mountain View Cemetery. Many family members are buried in this cemetery. It is located in Des Arc, Missouri. As so many family members are here, I will not attempt to name them all. The majority of the family members in this cemetery are from the Dillingham side of the family. So starting with me, back through my mom, Irene Dillingham Rubel, to her parents, Bill and Opal Dillingham. Bill and Opal Dillingham are both buried here along with many other family members. Here is Irene Dillingham Rubel when we visited the cemetery.
This is Goldie Dillingham Poston. That was Dad's sister. That was the only sister he had. Okay. And this is my dad and mom, William and Opal Dillingham. And Dad bought this tombstone when he sold his boat. And so we went ahead and bought ours at the same time. And this is my little brother, Teddy Dillingham. He died when he was 4 years old. He had brain cancer. He was the baby of the family. And this is my brother, Arthur David Dillingham, or we always called him Butch. He died he dies in 2007. And he was next to Teddy in the family. Might as well put my Aunt Marthy on there. This is my Aunt Marthy and Albert. But Marthy didn't have any kids, and so we were kind of always her adopted kids. And they had a car, and we didn't, so they'd always come over and take us places. And this is my Uncle Finley, Mom's brother. And he was in the service for a long time, but this is where he is buried, Mom's brother. Grave of Garland Dillingham, Dad's youngest brother. There was 4 of the Dillinghams. Their dad and mom was John Pope and Rosie. And William and Goldie are buried here at Mountain View Cemetery at Des Arc. But Daniel is buried down in Arkansas someplace. And Rosie is buried here, but John Pope is buried at Aldrich Cemetery down by Poplar Bluff. This is Dad's mother, Rosie Eddie Bell, was Dillingham at the time when Dad was born. And John Pope was her husband, my grandpa, and I think I said a while ago he's down very close to Poplar Bluff, but it was close to Van Buren. So this is their mother, Rosie. I didn't know her very well. She died when I was young.
Woods Cemetery. This location includes some of the Matthews side of the family. So from me, back through my mom, Irene Dillingham Rubel, through her mother, Opal Matthews Dillingham. Opal's parents, Norman and Lester Matthews, are buried in this cemetery. Here's Irene Dillingham Rubel when we visited the cemetery.
Okay, this is where my grandmother, Lester Kendricks, is buried, and she is the daughter of the Safrona Chilton Davis that we just went to the cemetery where she was. and my grandpa Norman Matthews, and they had what, 8 kids? 8 kids, and then Norman was working in St. Louis and got fell and got meningitis, and then he died in 28, and she had all the kids then to raise, and I think they had a really hard time getting by. And anyway, Norman had gotten meningitis, and they thought it was probably contagious. So when they brought his body back home, of course they set people up in the houses then, and they couldn't take him in the house because they thought the meningitis was contagious. So they set his casket out in the yard, and they set up all night out there in the yard with him. And they didn't want him to open the casket, but Marvin opened the casket to make sure that was his dad that was in there. And anyway, then Grandma was so good to take care of everybody, and she would welcome any of us to come to her house anytime we wanted to, and I loved to comb her hair and braid it, and she was really a good grandma.
What about the feather bed?
One more story. Grandma fell and broke her arm, and so I went out there. I don't know how old I was, probably 10, and to stay and help Grandma. And I had asthma a lot, and I got one of my asthma spells while I was out there taking care of Grandma. So she put me to bed in her big feather bed with the feather mattresses, and the feathers was something that caused me to have asthma. And she cooked up a bunch of onions and put them in a bag of a thing, as onion poultice, and she laid that all across my chest. And because she thought I had pneumonia, I think. We didn't know it was asthma. And I lay there in that feather bed and go, ah. Anyway, Martha and Albert had to come and get me in the car and take me back home. And so I didn't get to take care of Grandma anymore.
Believe it or not, your dad.
Old Kreitz Place, or Matthews Cemetery. This cemetery is located on the Matthews homestead. It is on private property currently owned by the Glover family. Located here are more of the Matthews family members. So from me, through my mom, Irene Dillingham Rubel, through her mom, Opal Matthews Dillingham, through her dad, Norman Matthews, to his parents, William and Martha Matthews. William and Martha are both buried here along with some of their children. Here is a video of our visit.
They had a son named, Norman's had a brother named Marvin.
Probably.
So that's probably who that
Yeah.
is. When was John Norman? When did he die?
Oh,
I don't know.
Had 2 keys.
I bet this
Did,
is Norman's
but
brother.
either they made them
He
wrong.
died,
mom and dad,
he
and that's-
died in 1928, I think it was.
Who is this back here? Is this-
You can't read those ones that are falling over. Debbie and I
Be
tried.
careful.
Those vines are terrible. That's got initials M, V, M. I think it's a G.
Jim said that those are footstones.
See,
That they used to, they put,
fell off.
because if you look,
And this
see,
is
here's the
footstone.
Yeah,
footstone.
yeah.
There's a footstone for that one, and this fell over
Yeah.
too.
And then there's one
But I
for
don't
that
know.
room.
Yeah. To mark that start.
Did these are different names.
Yeah, that's not,
Yeah, there's a
those are
Glover.
Because it said there's 3 of their kids are buried here, so Marvin would have been one of their kids. And so
Yeah, I
there was
This is 2 footstones.
2 others.
Well, they probably don't have stones.
The cemetery where my dad is buried. Mom and dad are buried. There's footstones on a lot of them. They have last initials on them.
And I bet that's probably what that is.
Yeah, could be.
Chilton Cemetery. This cemetery is on private property near the town of Bruno, Missouri. It includes the Davis family members. So from me, back through my mom, Irene Dillingham Rubel, through her mom, Opal Matthews Dillingham, to her mother, Lester Davis Matthews Kendricks, to her parents, Benjamin Franklin Davis and Sophrona Chilton Davis. They are both buried in this cemetery. Here is some video from our visit.
Want to say anything?
Go ahead.
And he always leaves that on there where I goof
Good
up.
morning. I'm Wayne Course. This is my wife Debbie, and for 10 years we have owned what we call the Parker property. But this is a deed, original deed from 1857, where James Buchanan, the President of the United States, granted to John Chilton a certain amount of land for homesteading purposes. I'm going to turn a couple pages over, and this is the last will and testament in 1893 of John Chilton. Not that he assumed to be dead then, but he gave, in his will, he named each of his children. Usually he gave them $25, which is a lot of money back in 1893. But in one case, he gave a sorrel house and one bay mule, one cow, and a calf to his daughter, Lucinda
Lucinda, yes.
Chilton. But what I find interesting, he had accumulated other homesteaders' property, which would be listed in here also. 325 acres of land. He gave that to his wife, Almeda,
Okay, that was John, yeah.
so long as she remains a widow. Because back then, it was very difficult for women to own land.
Well,
on
and
their own.
Almeda was the mother of our Roni, Safrona, John and Almeda. And so that Lucinda is Roni's sister.
It's an old tree. I'm sure this was up, you could see out from here when it was first made a cemetery.
What time did you get it? Quarter after?
Is that all this land grown back
Still
up?
up there? Ruble?
It's all.
Davis, or Shook Cemetery. This cemetery is located near Shook, Missouri, and includes many of the Davis family members. So starting with me, going back through my mom, Irene Dillingham Rubel, through her mom, Opal Matthews Dillingham, through her mom, Lester Davis Matthews Kendricks, through her dad, Benjamin Franklin Davis, to his dad, William Armstrong Davis, who is buried in this cemetery along with many other Davis family members. William Armstrong Davis had 3 wives and 16 children. Aldrich Valley Cemetery. This cemetery is located in Carter County, Missouri, near the town of Van Buren. Buried here is John Pope Dillingham. Starting with me, his lineage goes through my mom, Irene Dillingham Rubel, through her dad, William Dillingham. John Pope was William Dillingham's father. He is buried here because this is the area Bill Dillingham grew up in, and his father passed away when he was very young.